champion de la place Sainte-Justine.
2021 has been another challenging years for the Champenois, especially for the growers. First, because of frost, we had a lot of frost in the spring, and we consider that over a week of frost we've lost 25-30% of the initial potential. Mostly down the south of Champagne in the Aube and in the western part of Champagne in the Aisne. A little bit less in the Grand Cru around Épinay. And then the spring has been very humid. A lot of rain in the spring. It's the wettest spring since 2003 and 1991. So a lot of pressure with disease, especially mildew. Again in the same regions, mostly in the Aube, in the Aisne, a little bit less in the core of Champagne, and with mildew that has been even the oldest Champenois I've never seen such a pressure. So we have lost another fourth of the initial potential, especially in July. July was so humid, but then August has been good. Has been better. The ripening of the grapes has been quite normal, even fast, and we started the harvest around the 10th of September in the Aube with the first Pinot Noir, followed by the Meunier in the Aisne, and then progressively we opened to the Pinot Noir from the Marne, and the Chardonnay came last. It's one noticeable element of the year. When the Chardonnay usually starts their ripening late and tend to ripen faster, and then we tend to start with Chardonnay or with Chardonnay and Pinot Noir all together. This year in 2021, the Chardonnay have been late and never managed to I don't know how to say that. In fact, to come right at the same time as the Pinot Noir. So we had to wait a little bit longer for the Chardonnay. We had some variations in yields. In average, we expect the yield in Champagne to be around 7 tons per hectare, 6.5, 7 tons per hectare. So it's half a normal harvest for Champagne, with the smallest yields again in the two regions that have been the most affected by the frost and by the mildew, the Aube, the Aisne. And the Chardonnay that have been less affected had a higher yield and therefore more time needed to reach maturity. At the end, we had to deal a little bit with botrytis, so we had to sort a little bit the grapes, but it didn't affect the final quality of the wines. We have harvested at an average of 9.8 up to 10 degrees potential in average, with obviously differences from one plot to another one, or from one village to another village. At the end, Meunier and Pinot Noir have been, in terms of sugar content, in the average of the past 10 years. The Chardonnay have been a little bit lower than the average of the past 10 years. All grapes managed to retain higher level of acidity compared to previous years. And at the moment, we have tasted all our wines twice. It's actually our second round of tasting. And what we can say is that globally the wines are clean, reserved, not so intense, not as tropical as in previous years, more reductive, more on what we call vegetal thiol, so a little bit herbaceous, a little bit citrusy, and reserved. Again, that is a good news at the moment, because considering the small yield, we'll have to use so much reserve wines in our non-vintage blends that having fresh based wines to compensate with the weight of the reserve wines is a good news. And despite the small volumes we have this year, as we have had good reserves in the Réserve Individuelle Qualitative, we will have all the wines needed to do a full bottling in order to deliver to the markets in 3, 4 and more years if we go for a vintage. At the moment, we feel safe for our non-vintage production. We will produce all the wines we have to, from Moët Impérial to Rosé Impérial to the Nectar and the Ice. Question mark on the vintage. My feeling is that we have a vintage quality potential, but we have to start planning our blending in order to see if we will have enough wines to do both a vintage and to regenerate our reserve and renew our reserves in order to secure the quality for Moët Imperial in the years to come. In terms of taste, the wines have some presence, even if there is a good tension, there is a good vivacity, there is a good energy in the wines, thanks to high levels of acidity left, even if the pH are quite high also. So there is a mouthfeel of a certain gourmandise, yet with a tension on the finish. So I believe most wines have a good potential ahead, not only for the blending we have to do this year, but also for the reserves and possibly for a vintage. And for that, we'll need to wait till the spring to see if we go for a vintage or not. You know, sometimes if you speak of vintage lees like 2008 recently, the acidity can be very sharp. In the case of 2021, there is acidity, but there is enough volume in order to balance the acidity and to deliver tension without aggressivity. Voilà. So it's a good balance so far.
Sous les lampions de la place Sainte-Justine, chantaient les hommes, les femmes en crinoline.